When it comes to stadiums, surely you've wondered about this one. Welcome to Berlin's Olympiastadion, originally built and funded on the orders of Europe's most notorious dictator, Adolf Hitler, ahead of the 1936 Summer Games.
Ich verkünde die Spiele von Berlin zur Feier der 11. Olympiade neuer Zeitrechnung als eröffnet.
What fascinates me the most about this stadium is that it has seen every layer of Berlin's tumultuous 20th century history.
The Nazi regime was 3 years in office, and it had commissioned this stadium as its first architectural masterpiece.
There was the intention to call it Adolf Hitler Stadium.
It's an incredibly impressive space, but it's also a space that's tied to so much dark history and inspiring sporting history. There really is no other stadium quite like the Olympiastadion in Berlin.
And I'm sure the NFL would agree. The first ever game in Germany was played right here back in 1990. And on the 36th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, they've been welcomed back with open arms. For Sports Illustrated, I'm Max Whittle, here to explore the journey this stadium has been on.
1916, this was supposed to be the site where those Olympic Games would take place, only to be canceled as a result of World War I, a war that brought an end to Germany's empire.
The original stadium that was here, not this one, it's called the Deutsches Stadion, was opened by Kaiser Wilhelm II, the last monarch of Germany, in 1913. Germany had actually not taken part in the first 2 Olympic Games following the First World War. They were banned, rather rejected by the international community. And the thinking from the IOC with the 1931 bid from Berlin was, this is probably going to be good for this country. They can show off their new democracy. They can be reintegrated into the wider world.
The German population voted Hitler into office in 1933.
Hitler came to visit the construction site here shortly after taking power and was outraged by the modern design of the stadium. Werner Marx, the architect, wanted to design something made of steel and glass, something that was really cutting edge.
The original facade was actually an in situ concrete facade, which was not really reflecting what the Nazis were expecting from public buildings.
And Hitler effectively went into a rage, brought in his friend Albert Speer, who would become his chief architect, and said that instead they should deck out this modern stadium build with this limestone facade, using only Aryan workers and only German materials to build the largest stadium in the world.
And the whole idea here was to send political messages of strength and authority. You feel smaller and smaller as you get closer and closer to the stadium.
Shortly after coming to power in 1933, a raft of anti-Semitic laws and decrees were introduced, particularly in April. This is when Jews were banned from taking part in German sports organizations, and Jews are effectively barred from competing against the majority of participants inside of the country. The Nazis would eventually select 2 women to fit this non-Aryan bill. One of them, a high jumper named Gretel Bergmann, was considered a full Jew under Nazi law and would actually quietly be dismissed from the team shortly before the game started. The one ostensibly Jewish woman, although she only had one Jewish parent, was Helena Meyer. Now, Meyer was a fencer. She'd actually performed in the 1928 and 1932 Olympics. 32, of course, was in LA in California, and she actually decided to stay put in California after the 32 Olympics. Her fencing club here in Germany, a place called Offenbach, did strike her from the list because Jews weren't allowed to be part of such organizations. But despite this, she did come here to Berlin, to Germany, to perform during the 1936 Olympics. And she ended up on the podium, not with a gold medal, but a silver. And during the medal ceremony, she also threw out the Nazi salute, something that she certainly regretted.
This part of German history can't be forgotten, and even if Germans would love to forget it, which they don't, others would remind us. I think it's absolutely important to inform, to document the history of that site of the Olympic Stadium. The Olympic Games are never unpolitical, and in those days it's very difficult to find a good message because the message that was sent was a lie.
As you first arrive at the stadium, you've got these symmetrical tall towers, a clock on one side, space for a swastika on the other. Behind that, this Colosseum-like appearance. And then as you enter the stadium, you get this wow moment as you see that it's recessed. It's much larger inside than it looks outside. The stadium suffered damage during World War II. Out to the south side of the stadium, you can find a bell that once stood inside of the bell tower at the edge of the rallying grounds that were purpose-built next to the stadium, just through the marathon gate. And it's inside of the marathon gate where you've got the list of gold medal winners from the 1936 Olympics.
And on this list, the name Jesse Owens shines. Everybody coming to the Olympiastadion should know about his story. And before their game here, Atlanta Falcons head coach Raheem Morris made sure of that.
I put together a little video for him tonight to show him. And we just put something together just so they can get a little bit of history, so they can get a really good feel and a really good prideful feeling of Jesse Owens and what he was able to accomplish and how dominant he was.
Jesse Owens, an African-American athlete, came here and won gold medals in the 100, the 200, the 4x100, and he set a world record in the long jump. And he did this all in front of the big shots of the Third Reich, including Hitler himself, who had labeled Owens as subhuman. And this disclosed how absurd the Nazis' idea of race and racial superiority were.
Jesse Owens came back in 1951 and ran a lap of honor in front of, I think, 50,000 Berliners who cheered him.
And with Owens' triumph and his success, this really turned this stage from a propaganda spectacle into a place of subtle defiance. And I think that that's inspiration for not only anyone who plays here, but also for all of us.
What was the stadium used for after World War II? Now, every single street in the city would have seen fighting right at the end as the city was surrounded by the Red Army, who would eventually take Berlin on the 2nd of May 1945. Berlin was not just occupied by the Soviets and by the Red Army, but in fact by Britain, France, and the USA as well. And the Olympic Stadium fell into the British zone of Berlin. The Nazi rally ground built at the back of the stadium was then used for British parades. In fact, one of the biggest ones that they would do each year was in celebration of the birthday of Queen Elizabeth II, who came to Berlin numerous times to watch the parades. The stadium then became the home stadium of Hertha Berlin, who were elevated to the top soccer league in Germany, the Bundesliga, in the 1960s, pretty much because the league wanted to have a West Berlin team in there. The Berlin Wall went right the way around West Berlin, and the city was then situated in the midst of East Germany. Well, Hertha Berlin got booted out the league because they were fiddling the funds, paying some of their players under the table. And that means that another team was brought in their place, Tasmania Berlin, who to this day have the record as the worst team ever in the Bundesliga. It's here in this stadium that they actually celebrated conceding their 100th goal in that season. In 2006, it hosted the final of the Soccer World Cup when Italy beat France in an infamous game where Zinedine Zidane decided to headbutt one of his opponents. In 2009, Usain Bolt broke the 100-meter record here with a time of 9:58, famously powered by chicken nuggets.
The renovation project happened between 1998 and 2004. I was the responsible architect within a team of 30-35 people here in our office, mainly for the stadium roof.
The star of the show when it comes to the renovation is the brand new roof.
I was just driving down to the south of Germany with my family, and on the other side of the road, on the highway, there was a big truck coming with the roof pieces on it. And that was just so much fun sitting there, and oh, there goes my roof. It was a 252 million euro project, 41,000 square meter roof consisting of 3,500 tons of steel. We kind of invented the double membrane. Nowadays that's actually quite a standard, but this was actually the first project where that was applied to. That kind of conceals the complex geometry behind it. We wanted the roof to almost not touch the massive stone base, to almost like float. We needed to suspend the original stadium, and we're digging like 20 meters underneath it to put all the floors in. And this is where the outer floor is today. So this is what you actually see, but this is what's behind it. So the idea was always to treat the building with quite a lot of respect. The whole design is really quite focused on the people to feel good in our buildings.
Quite the structure then, and quite the stage for global events. Speaking of which, let's talk about the NFL.
Well, back at the end of the 1980s, the NFL was looking to expand over here to Europe to really get in on establishing a new NFL fan base. Germany was the place to do that, given the fact that there was such an American presence here, an American presence that goes all the way back to the end of World War II. You had thousands of American soldiers and their families that lived in and around bases. They built football fields and they had games, and they would invite locals to come and watch these games being played. The AFN, American Forces Network, would broadcast NFL games, and you had curious Germans that would tune in. After a while, football becomes basically the new norm here. It becomes something more than just a sport. It becomes something that demonstrates modernity and freedom and the American way of life. And Frankfurt was actually the city that was chosen to host that first ever game between the Chiefs and the Rams. But then history happened. In 1989, less than a year before that first game was going to be played, the Berlin Wall fell. And so all of a sudden, Berlin, the focus was on this city. It became a place that was seen full of hope and promise and forward thinking. And the NFL was like, well, why are we doing this here in Frankfurt? Let's go in and get on the fray, and let's showcase our product up in Berlin. Now it's a place where people come from all walks of life, from all different diversities, from all different countries from around the world to celebrate peacefully and to cheer peacefully in a stadium that had such a despicable agenda behind it. And so you could say today that the Olympic Stadium has been reclaimed for something so much better.
This is a place that's absolutely dripping with history.
If I would have to describe it in one word, it won't work in one word. It also won't work in 3 words.
I would say that the Olympic Stadium is a mirror of Berlin itself. It is constantly being reborn.
I was from the very start on, I was of course fascinated, appalled by 12 years of the Third Reich. Tearing everything down from the past makes the past really disappear. You have to have material objects. You get a sense of what the regime also meant, both for the people living here in Germany, but also for visitors from abroad. If you only think of Nazism as a system of terror and persecution and annihilation, you'll never understand why so many people in the 1930s actually were in favor of the regime.
Sure, it can tell us a lot about the darkest period in Germany's history, one of the darkest periods in world history. but it's a period that's also early on in the 12 years of Nazi rule.
And although only maybe less than half of them had voted for Hitler in 1933, many more actually cherished him later. He was the Führer, he was the leader, and he would bring a great future, and he would help them. And that's also to be seen at the Olympic Stadium.
We are not trying to design the most crazy building or the most extravagant building. We want them to feel like at home, focus on the match, but at the same time it's also the awareness of the history and the responsibility of that building.
The structure is there to stay.
It represents change, resilience, and the power to redefine meaning. And to sum this all up, if the walls of this stadium could talk, I think they would say, Berlin has changed, and so have I.